So why is Newcastle the lowest picked legend in Apex Legends? Today I'm going to outline all the reasons why and explain what Respawn could do to help the character out in the future. I myself have 11,000 kills on Newcastle, so I feel I have enough depth and time on the legend to accurately outline all of the flaws and reasons as to why people do not enjoy or even like or even find him useful within the game. But before we get into that, if you're new, leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content, and if you're looking for more Newcastle based videos, be sure to hit the notification bell to never miss a video of mine. Now getting straight into the video. Newcastle is seen by many as a pretty useless legend currently within the meta of Apex Legends. Today I've outlined and bullet pointed as to why I feel this is the case for both pubs and ranked, and then also now competitive with the new Catalyst meta. Within a lot of these subsections that I've outlined, pubs, ranked and competitive, I have a lot of different things that go into each category as to why he is underpowered or unusable currently within Apex, and thus giving him such a low pick rate. So we'll start with pubs. Pubs is a sweat fest. Pubs, a lot of people want to just hop on the game and have fun. Newcastle is difficult to have fun in my opinion because of a many few factors which I'm going to talk about right now. To start off, he has a lack of mobility. His ultimate is the only thing that gives him some vertical mobility. That mobility doesn't really work because when you ult onto people or to get away, it doesn't either go far enough. Sometimes it's a bit janky when you try to place it, similar to the Ash portal. When you land on someone with the ultimate, you get stunned longer than them, thus meaning you can take damage before you can shoot your gun and shoot the opponent. So that is the starting factor as to why he is a bit unenjoyable in pubs. Then, like I said, the lack of quick mobility, the larger hitbox, that Fortified does add a bit of like health and defensive stability, but when you just have a bigger hitbox and everyone's sending you, it's very difficult. And then you have his Q, which is probably the best part about his kit, but it's so finicky in moments when you try to fight like a sweaty TTV Wraith and a stimming Steam config Octane that just wants to twirl around you. It's very difficult to fight that as a Newcastle, and it's just really not fun. For ranked, I feel like it's the same, but it's a little bit better. Newcastle suffers from the same lack of mobility in ranked. This ranked system really supports aping and fighting and more fighting, because the higher rank you get, the more of a deduction in points you get, which means the more kill points you need to be able to rank up, especially once you get into Master and Predator lobbies. And you simply, to be honest, cannot do this as a Newcastle. You can to an extent if you play the game super well, if you're really skilled. He suffers from the same thing that Crypto did, where there's like a high skill ceiling to Newcastle, but even when you put that into practice, sometimes you literally cannot win. If I'm fighting a guy 1v1 and I put my Q down and I get third-partied in my back, and then I'm getting aped by a Pathfinder and an Octane grappling and then stimming into my Q, it's very hard to segregate those two opponents like you would in, say, a Gibby bubble when you're like shotgun fighting. Plus, Gibby has the arm shield, which I'll get onto for Newcastle later on in the video, which I think is one of the things that they could do to help him. You kind of get put down because you have the bigger hitbox and you have no way of stunning people. His Newcastle ult, the stun does work, but there's been times where you'll see in this video even where I put clips throughout, there's people literally playing on my Newcastle wall and they're not getting stunned. And the stun doesn't come out instantly, nor does it last like for a prolonged amount of time. You have it for maybe 30 seconds and the stun is not there. So then people can just climb and play your wall, and your wall becomes your disadvantage if you move away from it, which is another frustrating thing. He does have the I don't know what it's called, but where you can respawn your teammates. He has that, like, he's in that class, and he can also give extra supplies for his teammates, which is a good thing. It really, I do think it helped Newcastle in that sense for ranked, but why would you play Newcastle when you could play Loba? So if your teammates die and you get third parties, you're not going to res as Newcastle. You're not going to try and res your teammates because you're just, like I said, you're going to get aped from an Octane. You're going to get fuse ulted. You're going to get grenade spammed if you're not playing with a Watson, because the Newcastle ult or his Q doesn't cover a full 360 vicinity, thus making it difficult to reset when there's everyone in the lobby like aping and playing stupid. It becomes extremely difficult. So your only option is to run away and craft a banner and respawn them. But why would you not do that when you have Loba? Because you get loot off the start of the game with her Loba ult, and then you have mobility with her bracelet. It's just... So straight away Loba counteracts Newcastle's play within ranked, and even Gibby does that as well. People don't use Gibby because the Seer Q, cancels the res. The Seer Q on Newcastle res also cancels the res. That's why people play Lifeline if they want a character like that, because it doesn't cancel the res. So Newcastle doesn't do what Lifeline does in terms of better in ranked. You can't res and not have it cancelled. And he doesn't do what Gibby does better because you can't cover a full 360 radius, giving you like an isolated fight from a third party. And he doesn't have extra health within those firefights because he doesn't have an arm shield. So it leaves Newcastle in a very difficult spot where he can't help reset his teammates, he can't isolate a fight, and he can't run away and craft banners. There is moments where Newcastle can be super strong, but a lot of the times you need to pair him with other legends, which takes me into the competitive side of things. Newcastle, when he first came out, was used by a lot of teams, especially one that comes to mind is 100 Thieves and Ascend. I know formerly SSG used Newcastle a little bit as well, but once a lot of the Fuse and the Catalyst meta became very prevalent, people stopped running Watson, which made Newcastle difficult to run because of a lot of the grenade spam towards the end game. When you're using your Newcastle ult, if you're trying to hold God Spot and you just get naded out or Gibby ulted or Fuse ulted or Catalyst wall, it all goes through the Newcastle wall and it doesn't give you a full vicinity cover. So again, it leaves Newcastle in a spot where he just doesn't do what any of the other legends do better. The only thing he's good for is if your teammate dies and you just need to drag them into cover and you're not the focus. That's Newcastle's best. That and walking up with his Q when you're going to third party or you need to cover a stretch of land. But again, some people would even argue launching a Gibby bubble and just standing there, or throwing a Maggie ball and just doming a team and running forward without any cover could arguably be better than just throwing your Newcastle Q and trying to run forward, which to an extent I would agree with. So all of these things that I've outlined make it extremely difficult for Newcastle to be viable to pick to anyone in the game, because he's not really that fun. He has a lack of mobility. All the legends that I've outlined either counter or do what he is supposed to do better. So that's where he falls, and that's exactly why his pick rate is so low. When I'm trying to describe that, I have like a loss for words because it frustrates me, because I enjoy playing the character. I have a real sense of satisfaction, especially with a lot of the shotguns. It's similar to Gibraltar. The way that you can use shotguns within his queue is extremely similar to Gibraltar's bubble, but he just doesn't do that as well as Gibraltar. One, because he doesn't have an armor shield, and two, because he doesn't cover a full vicinity, a 360, and keep him safe. So you're just going to get nade spammed, you're going to get shot in the back, you're going to get grappled on, you're going to get sent, because people know they can do that. Whereas if you have a Gibby bubble, you can at least jiggle peek inside the bubble, move back from the bubble, you can launch it into places. Whereas Newcastle's Q is very finicky, you can't twirl and drag it around, it rotates on its own sometimes. It becomes increasingly annoying, frustrating, and just tiresome to use Newcastle. That's why a lot of teams in competitive don't run him anymore. That's also why people don't play him in pubs, because he's very frustrating, and the lack of mobility, the lack of enjoyment, the quickness in the gameplay, which a lot of people would like to just hop on and play when they go to play Apex if they're not really fussed about ranked. So what I feel they could do to make Newcastle better, in my opinion, is a must is an arm shield. Newcastle must have an arm shield. That is an absolute, if they're going to buff one thing, they should give him an arm shield, in my opinion. They should also make his stun on his wall last an extra minute or two longer, so it's harder even when you move away from your wall for teams to play your own cover. And then they should make the radius on the Newcastle wall the same distance as the Watson fence. Like, you know, when you go near it, if you don't exactly go onto it, but you still kind of graze the fence, you get stunned. It should be the exact same, in my opinion, for the Newcastle wall, because it doesn't last forever. So once the stun is gone, people can climb and do whatever on it, which is why it should be longer, but they should add the stun radius so that it's very difficult to push a Newcastle. If I door off a door with my own wall, they can't push or kick my door because the stun is going to last long, it's going to do some damage, and I'm going to be able to pull the wall down and I'm going to kill you. Plays like that should be viable on Newcastle. So I feel like that's things they could do to improve Newcastle for a start. Arm shield, longer stun radius, and increasing the stun duration on the wall. Not on the player that's affected, but the actual how long it lasts on the wall. That would be a good start. And then one last thing, when you ult onto people, you shouldn't get stunned longer than them. Because it's your ability, you're making the aggressive play to stun your opponent by walling and giving yourself cover, so you can either push your teammates up or take a straight 1v1 with the enemy so you can have the position or the kill that you want. And you don't really get to do that. You get punished. You get punished for ulting onto people because you get stunned longer, and then you end up getting fried for it, or sometimes even dying it. If it's a really good player and you get one magged, it's just, there's nothing you can do about that. So that'd be a good few things that I feel like they could do to improve Newcastle. So you guys can let me know down below in the comments. This part of the video is unscripted, so if it was a bit all over the place, it was kind of me just ranting a little bit because I love the character and he's a lot of fun, but he's so underpowered, and with such a low pick rate, I'm the only guy really, apart from like Taxi, who even stopped playing him, who really like shines a bit of light on the character, plays Newcastle, but even when I go into ranked or competitive, he isn't the first thought that comes into my mind, like, oh, we need a Newcastle, because there's so many other legends that do what Newcastle do or better, and there's so many instances where playing Newcastle can potentially get you killed because you tried to play around his kit. So you guys can let me know down in the comments what you think. I'll also continue to make Newcastle videos, Newcastle content. We're striving for #1 on Steam. We're #1 M&K, but we're trying to get to 20,000 before the end of the season, and next split I'm going to try to make an early run for Pred. So if you're looking forward to that, leave a like, subscribe, go follow my Twitch, and yeah, just let me know in the comments what you think about today's video and your thoughts on Newcastle. Goodbye.